Hello, Master Tron Tamer here. Well, I've got a project we're starting, a new one, and let me kind of explain what's going on here. This is a device for jump starting your car. Also has 12-volt outlets, and it's got a inverter for AC power. Hey, looks like it can even do USB. This was given to me because it was defunct and was going to go in the garbage because they weren't able to fix it. So I thought, what the heck, let's give it a try and see if we can fix it. The person who gave it to me claims that they called the technical support and were told they just needed to change a fuse. Somehow I doubt that. But if I discover that, I'll be very happy that that's what the case is. Anyways, the first step in this, and full disclosure, I'm both an electronics and a computer engineer. I don't open anything like this without the knowledge of what I'm doing, particularly a device like this, which has both DC and live AC, which can be fatal. So I'm careful. And along those lines, the first thing I'm going to do is these jump leads are usually connected directly to the battery. Now I've measured them and I don't see any voltage on them, but it doesn't hurt to be a little bit careful that we're not going to accidentally short something out. That really could start a fire. And I'll go ahead, usually you would just need to do the plus, but I'm going to go ahead and protect the other one too so that they can't possibly touch each other. And I just noticed that there's a spring in the back of this one. No, it's not connected to it. Alright, so that should be good. That gives us a level of protection. Now, I've already started the disassembly because I kind of naively thought that this would be similar to how many of the UPSs work that also take a similar battery, and that there's a service door on the back for removing the battery if you know what you're doing. Well, I went ahead, took this part off, which had a little service door, but, and there is the lead acid battery, the gel cell, and there's no way to pull it that I can see without completely pulling the rest of this apart. So that's going to be the next step so that we can see what's going on in there. So just to make this interesting, there is a bunch of screws on this thing. So chances are I'm going to go ahead and speed up this video. So what they've done here is two of these, I checked on this before, they put in with security screws. They really don't want us opening this, but I have the right tool for that. Sorry for that squeak if you just heard it. I gotta figure out why my table is squeaking like that. Alright, there's one of the security screws, and here's the other one. So again, do not do this at home, kids. This is only the realm of electronic engineers and folks who know what they're doing. Alright, but now I will go ahead and lift this off. And hopefully I can clamshell this so you can see it too. Well, I have limited range on some of these wires. Let me disconnect this one off its board. And there we go. So the first thing I want to show you is I was right about the jumper leads. They're directly connected to the battery. So if it were a fuse that was meaning that that's why there was no power on them, that's already disproven, because there is no fuse between them and the leads. I can see them connecting up directly, and so do some other things. And in fact, on the board, that one of the boards right here does have a fuse on it. See if I can pull that out of there. It's an earlier automotive style fuse, and it's fine. So that's not our issue. But really, kind of the two things that could be an issue here is that the battery is not getting charged because of a faulty charging circuit. That could be an issue. The other thing, though, is that the battery itself goes, and they have a limited lifespan and just probably needs to be replaced. But I'm going to look in here to see if I can see anything else that might be causing our trouble. So, for the purposes of charging, this little thing pops down. So I'm assuming that this is the charging board. And we would have to put 110 on this, which I'm not prepared to do right now. But we would need to find out if this board is producing the right current. Should be around 15 volts or so for trickle charging the battery. We can see where those leads connect. I'll double check in there to make sure that there is no fuse, but I don't see one. I see a charging LED, and I see a black and a white wire to bring the power over to this board with no fuse. That at least is noticeable. And sometimes you'll see a little integral fuse on the board itself. I don't see one of those either. So I suspect that this charging board is okay, and that our real problem is this battery. We can check the battery to see if there's any voltage on it. I did charge it just to see if it would take a charge, and I didn't get anything on the leads. So there, hopefully you can see that. And no voltage there. So it's dead. So it's probably about a 98% chance that's what's wrong with this particular device is the battery, and it needs another one, which means that this one will have to be recycled properly. Lead in our environment is a serious health risk. So it is a lead acid battery, even though it is a gel cell. Yeah, let me show it to you. There we go. It is a lead acid battery, so it needs to be disposed of properly, and I need the correct battery for replacing it. So that'll mean a run to my local electronics store where they stock these batteries, and I'll go ahead and get a hold of one, and I think we'll complete the video then. We'll test it and make sure that that's what the issue is, and make sure it takes a charge, and then we'll put it all back together again if that's what it takes to fix it. One of the things I'm going to do is go ahead and disconnect it from these other lines here, just so that I can check this charging circuit to see if it is indeed producing any juice that could be charging the battery. That's the part that makes me the most nervous, because it is 110. So anyways, I'll need to do that. and make sure that that charging circuit is working, that that has not burned out, and that is not what our problem is. But I'll do that, and that will involve basically just lifting off this one wire from the battery, hooking up the charging circuit, and seeing if I have 14 volts there. Okay, all ready to go now. I've got this set up, got my meter ready to give us a reading. All we need to do is disconnect this. So I have checked the voltage ahead of time to make sure there was no live voltage on there. There we go. Don't want to lose these. We're going to put it back together with them. So this is the thick lead. It goes up to the jumper cable. This is the one that's coming in to charge it, and also probably powering the pump and the inverter and a whole bunch of other parts of it. But for now, we want to see if we can get the charging current on it. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the back, staying well clear of this side where I know there's AC. You can't see it from your angle, and I don't really want to move it, but there's a little green LED that's come on by the power outlet, and I'm assuming that's telling me it's ready to charge. So we'll connect to here, and sure enough, we have enough voltage for charging. More than enough. Now, there's one more diagnostic thing we can do. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this again. But there's one more diagnostic thing we can do, which would be, knowing now that there's 18 volts without load, it'll drop probably under load, going in here to trickle charge this. Let's put this all back together. Let's see. Now, I ran a fairly similar test to this before I even opened the case. And that's because I was 99% sure that these jumper leads connected directly to the battery. So it's really kind of a window into testing the battery. Anyways, so that's why I'm not totally... Oh, my meter wants to turn itself off. We're not going to let it do that. It's a little irritating, but good so you don't have to go buy a battery. Okay. I'm going to connect all that back together the way it was. Hook up my lead directly to here. And like I said, I should get similar test to what happened before I even opened it, but let's find out. Yeah, I see that I have 18 volts going into there, but from my test before where I left it like this overnight, the battery never took a charge, and it should. So if the battery's not taking a charge, it did drop in voltage just a little. We're now down to 17 point something. There goes that battery saving feature. Here, let me get it back on. Interesting. It's now dropped to 16.5. Yeah, I may, very carefully watching this, let it go for a little bit further to see if I actually get anything in the battery. Could have been a bad connection that I just fixed, but I don't think so. But we'll see. We'll go ahead and see. It is interesting that it's dropping, because that kind of tells me that the voltage is sinking into the battery. Now, that doesn't mean it's charging. It could just be a resistive load, and that's taking it up. But what makes it interesting from an engineering standpoint is that the voltage is climbing down, which means that the load of the battery is changing, which would indicate that it's taking a charge. So before I run out and buy a battery, well, it's kind of stabilized now at 14.5 volts. Show that to you again. Yeah, before I run out and buy a battery, which I'm pretty sure there's one of those in my future regardless, I am going to let this take a little bit of a charge. And I'll check back with you on that while I go work on something else. But due to the magic of editing, it'll only be a second. Well, hello, I'm back. I did run the charging test that I mentioned. I have charged this basically overnight with the old battery and never got enough power to do anything other than run the light. There's a flashlight on this unit for a couple of seconds. So it is done. So it is time to change out the battery. I am lucky that I have a local shop that I can go get this from. And I was also lucky that I was able to turn in the old battery for recycling. Like I mentioned, we don't want lead in the environment. We need to have it recycled. And the fellow at the battery shop told me that they recycle close to 98% of the material of these batteries. So, fantastic. All right. One point, we should make sure we have juice in the battery. They don't typically send them out with a full charge when they're in storage, but we should get an idea of where we're at. Make sure we're not putting in another bad battery. I trust the people where I got it, but who knows, right? So so hopefully you can see that. It's 12.71. There we go. That's a little better. It was glaring. 12.71. That's good. That's kind of right within standards for a battery that's been in storage. So that tells us it's good, but that also tells us that we got to be very careful not to short this. We only want to work with one set of leads at a time. Oh, well, that's okay. We don't need that. That was my remote for the camera. So what we will do is put these in. We'll connect them one at a time, being careful to keep them away from each other. Let's just say they're not going to play nice. All right. Let's put this one in here. And connect this big fat copper lead. We want to make sure these are good and cinched. It might be riding along in the car and the vibration could get to it. Alright, so that one is good. The next one we have is the positive lead. Oh, a little spark there to wake me up. But it should be doing that. There must have been something that was on the panel behind me. Nothing like that to get your blood going a little bit. Okay, this one is not tight, but we'll need to grab that one from behind in order to guarantee how tight we want that. And I'm going to start with this wire pulled over here. If I had a third hand, I would be holding that wire. Okay, now that we've got that taken care of. Yeah, this is very tight. All right, more than enough to guarantee that that will go. Well, obviously we have juice. We saw a spark. I hope you saw the spark. So I'm going to turn this back around to the front here. And my squeaky table. I may have to go buy me another one because it's really starting to irritate me that it shows up in my recordings. Okay. So, there's the light. That's good. This is for the inverter. I don't know. I'll have to look on the manual to figure out what that is. I'm sure I can find a manual online. Oh, this is watts being pulled. 0. This particular unit also has, and the switch is on the back for this, a pump. Okay. It's loud enough. Sounds like it's doing something. Probably be a little more quiet once I put it back together. And then we also have this switch, which I assume turns on the 12 volt and possibly this. It's telling us we've got 12.8 volts. That should be more than adequate. So, at this point, it's just a matter of putting it all back together, which, as they say, should be roughly the opposite of taking it apart. So, let's go ahead. I want to just turn this so you can see it, a little bit at least. Yeah, this battery compartment was interesting. It looked like it had been designed that you could possibly put a larger battery into it. And I considered that for a while, but I think we're just going to go with what was supposed to be in there. So, in putting this back in, we don't want to pinch any wires. So I'm lifting these up. And pushing that in. So this little fan has got a suction port right here to pull in air from the outside. And it sits just like that once that is in there. Okay, so this is pushed in, I think far enough, but we'll know when we get the case shut. Alright, I'm going to slowly kind of bring this back together. Now you'll recall that I disconnected this cable when we started. You should always kind of make a record of everything you disconnect and where it came from. This particular one, although it would be more convenient if the lead were longer, I get what they're doing here. This is another little fan that lives over on this side. So it's got 2 built-in fans. Alright, that one's reconnected. Everything else is reconnected. This fan is in the right place. Let's see if it's going to slide together for us. I'm going to flip it on its side. Actually on its front. Okay, I do not think it is the battery stopping it from closing. There's something else. Yeah, it is hitting something. Okay, let's see if we can figure this all out. What it looks to me is that this particular terminal on the battery, which hopefully you can see, is hitting when trying to close. So the only thing I can think of is it must have been at an angle. So I'm going to try that. Just like before, except at an angle. And then I'm going to do the same thing from the positive, because that won't hurt anything. Although I did not see that one hitting. Okay, come on. It doesn't want to do it. Let's see if I can figure out why. There we go. It is just at a bind. Here, let me turn it towards me a little bit. And maybe this one shouldn't be turned. But we'll find out in a minute. But that's the only thing I can think it's hitting on. All right. Okay, battery is still in its position. Fan that came out before is up here. So now I am going to reconnect. We'll slide the whole thing over first. And then reconnect that little fan that I disconnected. Alright. It's back here on this little board in the side, which might be the inverter board. Alright. Well, let's cross our fingers and see if it wants to go together this time. Again, I'm going to put it up like this because it seems to work with gravity a little bit better. Oh yes, much better than before. Make sure that there are no wires being pinched. This board on this side, I'm on my right hand side, I'm trying to make sure that that is set in like it's supposed to. I think that that was the trick. Ah, there goes my remote again. Good thing it's tough. Alright, so all that's left is to put this back together. We'll go ahead and probably fast forward that part as well. I'm assuming. And I will put these together. I will not be putting it together with the original tamper-proof screws. When tightening it, sometimes we want to offset back and forth as we kind of close it up and get it all to snap nice and tight. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and put some down here on the bottom too to pull that together. That was a little tight to bring together because it is pushing in on the battery and setting the battery into place so it doesn't jostle around. There's not a separate clamp for the battery. So it's the case that's got to hold it. Alright. Now it's just a matter of putting them in. Let's put the one in over on this side. No shortage of screws and how they want this put together. Alright, now I'm going to close the handle up here and got replacements for the security screws that came in. Alright, so this little door kind of fits in there like that. And then there's a series of screws to put that in. No shortage of screws on this particular device. So I'll go ahead and put them all in. Looks like I was smart enough to save the screws by putting them in where they were going to go when it all went back together. Every now and then I get it right. Yep, so that's just it. I think we're down to 2 more. Apparently this one's under a little bit of pressure too because it's acting like a strain relief on the cord for the battery leads. So one of the reasons I taped over those leads at the very beginning was so I could do these operations and not even remotely worry that I might be shorting those out. And that's not going quite right. That one more time. Boy, that one's just a little bit hard to get into its groove. Maybe I'm pushing it up too hard from where it was before. Okay, let's see if there's any on the back. I suspect there probably is. Always more to do. Yeah, let's go ahead and put these in. Okay, so this is just kind of a rubber bumper on the back. It is kind of heavy if it was backing around your car or truck. So now we'll go ahead and take these off. because we can now safely put these on their little holders where we know they won't get shorted. There we go. Oops, I see a flaw. That one's supposed to go like that, and that's so we can get to the plug to charge it. Speaking of which, we should probably give that a try. I've got a cord right here. Well, this does get in the way when you do that. There we go. Okay, I think you can see it. There's a little green LED back here. That's for charging. So I'm assuming it is. We can also check the voltage across the battery, particularly now that we know that these two leads are connected directly across the battery. So connect that one, connect that one. Trying to measure AC. I don't know what's up with that. Well, maybe there was a kill switch up here. Let me go see. Maybe, yeah, that is off. Very interesting. That is a good safety feature if that is what it is. Because I'm not getting any voltage. I'll hold that so you can see it. Let me try this switch on the front. Nope. Okay, maybe it's because it's charging. So, mystery solved. I went ahead and charged it up, and then, kind of playing a hunch, I took it out and connected it to a vehicle with a known dead battery to see if it could actually jump it. So I hooked up the leads, turned the switch on right here, and left it on there for a minute or two to get a little bit of juice into the battery of the truck, and cranked her over, and it started just fine. So what I think is going on here is that there is some type of a safety to keep you from misconnecting it, which is not a bad idea. So there's no voltage apparently on those leads until you actually connect it up and turn on the switch. Now when I brought it back into here, while the switch was still on, I went ahead and tested the meter across the leads, and there was my 12.8 volts or whatever it was. It was indeed still charged. It was still there. Turned the switch off, then turned the switch back on, nothing. So like I said, it's got to have a circuit that auto detects when it's connected up to the car properly. So that's a good feature. So I'm assuming these devices cost a couple $100, considering the functionality on here. We've got the inverter, we've got the pump. So I think it's pretty good. You know, maybe 30 minutes all told, taking it apart, and maybe another 20 minutes putting it back together once I had the battery. So for the cost of the battery, now I've got one, because as I said, somebody gave it to me because they said it wouldn't work. So I think that'll be good. It'll be a good addition to my toolkit. Please, if you like this video, please like it. Hit the subscribe button. That's always great. And I hope that if you have one of these, that you found this very useful. My only real complaint with it is that it would have been nice if they had designed it so it was a little easier to get that battery in and out. It's a lot of screws. But if you're willing to do that, and like I said, you've now seen all the steps, so that'll be great. So until next time, I'll see you in our next video.